Good morning, everybody. Good to be here with you. I have Facebook coming up here. So I read my news piece to you. Here we go. So we're glad to have all of you here this week. We had some great things happening. Actually, yesterday we had a really great program here that we hosted, and it was really nice to have all these different women from different backgrounds, and we shared about issues in the world and how we can resolve them. Actually, I had a very eye-opening conversation with one of the ladies as she started sharing to me about her time being on the bus, and her brother were the first black kids to go to an all-white school. And she shared about what that experience was like, and it was just a really eye-opening conversation. So all throughout lunch, I was talking with her and another sister about their experience and how they're able to process different interactions they've had in the past, the development that has been going on, and kind of the awareness still to have. And it was just a really moving conversation. And what it really came down to was whether people are black or white or brown or yellow, ignorance drives hatred. Ignorance drives mistrust. Ignorance is what motivates people to put another group down. And what they have realized over their years is everybody has a possibility for these same tendencies. And as we grow in love, as we grow in our understanding of God, if we really embrace the truth of God's teaching, there is no room for separation, actually, is what they were realizing. As we grow in understanding that we all come from the same Creator, there's really no space to have negative thoughts towards another person because of their race, their culture, their nationality, background. And it was just a beautiful conversation, but it was a reminder, too, about how often we use our own personal desires, our own personal viewpoints to put others down, to get ourselves ahead, to look for our own personal gain. And it's driven by desire, but misguided desire, where we see someone else's gain as our loss. And so we need to open ourselves up to understand God's viewpoint, God's perspective of our life, and how we all benefit when we live in love, when we live in embracing the idea that we're one family under God. And so today we're going to be sharing a little bit about the fall, the results of the fall, and the characteristics that some of us still harbor. I mean, all of us still harbor some characteristics of this nature. It's just ingrained in society, ingrained in the world, and how we can move beyond that, how we can come back into a place where our desires are desires that benefit other people. And so today it's about our misguided desires, and you see people going in all different directions. How do we find a way that we match up, that we support one another? But I didn't want to have it all doom and gloom today, so I wanted to start with this verse from Joel. Fear not, earth, be glad and celebrate. God has done great things. Fear not, wild animals. The fields and meadows are greening up. The trees are bearing fruit. Again, a bumper crop of fig trees and vines. Children of Zion, celebrate. Be glad in your God. So despite what we see sometimes, let's have hope and trust in what God is doing, that God will help the plants be fruitful once again, that all living things will be able to multiply goodness once again. Be confident in the promises of God. And it continues, He's given you a teacher, right? He's going to train you in how to live right. Teaching like rain out of heaven, right? Like that grace like rain falling down on us, teaching us all, and encompassing all people, not just one group, right? The rain comes down and it doesn't pick a certain targeted person, right? When rain falls, it hits us all. Like we saw this past week, yeah. That was a rain. Something. Showers of words to refresh and nourish your soul, just as He used to do. And plenty of food for your body, silos full of grain, casks of wine, and barrels of olive oil. And I thought how beautiful this is, this idea of this nourishing words that quenches your soul just like He used to do. And it reminds me of when Adam and Eve walked through the gardens and spoke with God, right? He spoke directly. He educated and taught them. But because of the distance of humanity, because of where humanity had gone, we weren't able to hear that voice of truth, that voice that instilled value into people, that taught us of who we are, who we come from, and what we ought to do with our lives. And so the lands dried up, and the plants were longing for their true owner, the owners of creation. Our own hearts longed for something more. We live in a world where, because of the repercussions of the fall, we are thirsting, right? We are thirsty for truth. We're starving for love, real love that can touch our souls, can nourish us, can raise us up. We look for an understanding amongst people. We look for harmony. We look for some kind of way that we can prosper, develop, and grow our lives. The lands have been barren. The lands have been dry. And because there was little, people fought over what was there. Instead of this mindset of how do we cultivate and bring something new for the next generation, the mindset was, there's not a lot here, so how can I section it off for myself? How do I secure the knowledge, the truth, the power, the money for me? How do I lord it over another person, use them for my advantage? And so people were left dry, longing for something more, not knowing how to obtain it. We're looking to be fulfilled, right? To fulfill our desires, to fulfill our hopes, to fill our cup with something that would nourish us and help us keep pursuing for more. You know, every morning I love to wake up and I drink like 3 glasses of water. I need to just pour it into my body, and it wakes up every cell in my body. I feel it. It rejuvenates me, and it gives me energy. I love drinking my coffee, but I don't touch it until after my water. I feel like that water refreshes me, and it quenches my thirst, but it also gets me to long for more. But I know that I've got a tap, and that water flows freely, and I can keep getting more. But, you know, I desire these things, and all people are desiring to find that cup that never empties, that never goes dry, that love that nourishes the soul, that we don't just use it one time and then we have to dump it and look for something else. Right? We're looking for fulfillment. We're looking to fulfill our desires, our hopes, and our dreams. But as we look at this world, right, we look at this idea of desires, and desires don't always get a fair shake. You know, actually in the Bible it says a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. That each person has these desires, these natural inclinations, and they're God-given. Right? God infused us with this passion to live life fully, to seek joy, to seek happiness, to seek fulfillment. God wanted us to desire to fill up our cup. But often in religious context, desire is looked at negatively, right? If I say I desire something, it gets this connotation of, you know, this dirty sex or money or greed. You know, the desire is something that we should suppress, something we should push down, and often in religious texts. We don't elevate desire. We say, you know, desire can be tricky. It's like playing with fire, and we don't want to give it a chance to grow. And so, easier than understanding it and developing our ability to be lords of ourselves, to be lords over our bodies, to take ownership of our lives, the easier idea is to just suppress it, to not have wants, to not have needs. So oftentimes when we say desire in a religious context, people go, oh, that's not good. I should just deal with my wife. I shouldn't desire with her, you know. Sometimes people say that kind of stuff. You know, we should enjoy our day-to-day life. You know, if I'm going to the beach, then I'm missing out on my opportunity to sacrifice and you know, go through that desert period. But actually, God planted desire in our hearts because God governs through joy. God governs through love. God hopes to see us fulfilled and to embrace and absorb the joys of this world. So one of the first things that I wanted to share was desires are natural. Desires are good, and they're God-given. But we need to be mature with our desires. We need to realize it is like playing with fire, but you know what? Fire is what allows us to cook food, right? Fire is what allows us to keep warm in the winter. Fire also is not a bad thing. It's just something we have to, think about how we're going to use it, how it's going to motivate us, how it's going to help us and help those around us. When you look at a little kid, right, they're 12, 13 years old, desire fills their heart, right? They start crushing on someone. They start being attracted to someone else. This is a natural thing. Sometimes as parents, we might get terrified and say, never look at a boy again, I'm going to pull you out of school. I imagine I've got a 7-year-old girl. I'm probably just about at that place. But we need to understand the desire is natural. It's not something to feel shame or dirtiness about. That God gave us this desire because He wanted to see people want to make relationships. They don't live alone, desire to have a partner. God planted that in. But it's how we use it and how we model ourselves and how we create ourselves to be able to handle those desires. So I wanted to say desire is good. Desire is something God planted. Because God wanted us to strive, to build, to create. God was like, I want this world that my children can live in and that they can have these passions and these hopes and these dreams in their hearts, and they can look at this world and say, what is it that I can build? What kind of art can I make? What kind of impact can I have on other people's lives? What kind of stirring can I cause in this world? God was excited about that. So God planted desire in our hearts. God wanted us to seek, to invest, and to develop all that we could with the world that He gave us. God wanted us to have these desires. He wanted us to look at this world and say, great, this looks nice, but what can we do to make it better? God didn't just create servants to awe at His magnificent creation, as beautiful as it is. God said, here's the raw materials. I made you in my image. Now let's see what you can do. In order for us to have that, He had to put desire in our hearts. He had to put a passion for life, for creation, for multiplying, for making things beautiful, for making things unique, for putting an imprint onto all things. And the way that we guide our passions, right? Because love is there, and passion is there, is our alignment with God. When we connect our passions, when we connect our desires to God and the purpose of the universe and the purpose of creation and the value of other people, when we take our passions and we go, how does this make my friend feel? How will this make the world a better place? So we study God's Word and we read in there. We start to understand more of the truths about how the principles govern society and govern life. And we understand that more and we start applying it. We start praying before we go out and do something. And we think, okay, yeah, I can do this. And if I do it this way, it might hurt someone. But I was just praying and I was trying to ask God His guidance. And I realized I can do the same thing, but it can benefit another person. I don't need to hurt someone in order to get this gain. And so when we align ourselves, when we take time to meditate, to reflect, to pray, we take that quiet moment. God speaks into our lives and speaks into those passions and says, this is the passion of your heart. Now let's create together. Let's do something that magnifies goodness, that multiplies love. Let's use your art. Let's use your craft. Let's use your business. Let's use your ideas to multiply goodness into this world. Use God's hope, His desire to put this in ourselves. But since the fall, many times our desires are devoid of other, right? They're about me. Or how can I achieve the most happiness right now? How can I earn a quick buck? How can I use someone else to make me happy? And what we feel like, hey, this is going to make me happy, and maybe it does for a moment, the end-term effect is a broken relationship, someone that doesn't trust you anymore, people labeling you a liar, a cheat. And what was fun for a moment becomes something that becomes a burden to us in the future. And when we continue to have these short-lived joys, we start to question our own self, our own value. We start becoming lost. Nothing brings us happiness anymore. And everything that we used to do that brought us happiness, it's too short-lived now. And so we look for greater gains, right? This is drug addiction, this is greed, this is, poverty. All these different things stem from these people trying to reach a short-term happiness at the expense of others that doesn't build value into this world, and they find themselves lost. They don't know where to turn. And the further you go down this way, the harder it is to come back and see that there's something else in life, something more that we should be aspiring towards. In Romans, right, in 7:21, Paul is lamenting about this fact. He's saying, I wake up in the morning, I think about God, I go out, I do good things for people. I even went to prison a few times. I got stranded on an island. All these terrible things happen to me, but I always keep God at my forefront. But then at the same time, he says, so I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law. But I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. And this is one of the most painful things. I don't know if you've ever felt this way. I reflected over this verse many times in my life. Because I look at my life and I go, if I just do X, Y, and Z, I'll have my life together and I'll be doing good and I'll be benefiting others. And then I wake up in the morning and I go, I have no desire to do that. Right? I mean, a simple thing is going to the gym, right? And you think, finally I'm going to get in shape. And you wake up in the morning and your wife's asking you, when are we going to the gym? We're going to go right after we drop off the kids. And I go, I didn't sleep so well last night. And my body, I had this desire to build myself up to become healthy, but I also had this war going on inside of me. But also, when we're meeting someone new, right, we think, wow, if I shared a little bit about what God's done in my life, it might really help this person. But then this other side of you goes, well, what if they reject it? What if they get mad at me? What if they disagree with me? I don't want to put myself in that uncomfortable situation. So the desire of God, the desire to do good, is pushing us forward, but then this other side of us, it's worried about being in discomfort, that's worried about, what I'm going to have to put myself out there for. It holds us back. It's not only in Romans, but in Divine Principle, it says all people have an original mind which inclines them to reject evil and pursue goodness. Right? It's a reminder that all people, no matter how shady or bad they might look, somewhere, maybe very deep down inside, this original mind lurks. That's driving them towards goodness. That's trying to get them to reject evil and pursue goodness. Yet even without our being aware of it, we're driven by evil forces to abandon the goodness which our original mind desires and perform evil deeds, which in our innermost heart we do not want to do. It's like when we're with our kids and a word slips out that we didn't want to say. Right? We're talking with our wife and we say something we want to pull back, we want to suck those words back in, gobble them up, but they've already come out. Right? You're in the register line at work and or at the store, right? And you start, giving a hard time to the cashier, and you go, why did I even do that? But it's already put out there. Your heart is to bring good into this world, but you get mad in the traffic. You yell something out. Right? Our innermost self desires to do good, to bring blessing, to bring joy. We're saying, hey, I want to see the unification of this world. But we hold ourselves back because other things are taking our attention, our focus. Evil isn't always this big, scary thing, right? And I think that's one of the fallacies we get ourselves stuck into. We think, well, I don't do evil because evil is, me going out and looking for fights and attacking people. But evil is just planting a seed that separates people from one another, planting a seed that separates people from God. It's just a little word. And a lot of little words makes a great big harm. It's someone that was already having a hard time, and you just added that last straw to their back, and they can't take it anymore. And we have to be conscious about how we live our life. This idea of the fall only affecting people that don't go to church, or only, it's crazy, right? It affects each one of us. And although we ask God for grace and guidance and love and support, and God forgives us 1,000 times over, we still need to address the root of our heart issues. We're torn, right? We have this desire to be good, but this other side of us, and it makes us feel so bad that we sometimes want to just give up on everything. I made a mistake again, and then you just pile on the mistakes, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, I'm just no good. Worthless. This war that rages within us makes us feel like we can't move forward. But I think about Paul, right? They call him St. Paul now, and I think, man, this was a guy that did great things, although he had this characteristic that all of us possess, right? Well, this characteristic can really deteriorate our humanity, our sense of God living within us. And so where does it come from? It comes from Adam and Eve, right? They had this first step. The human fall is the beginning of this process where people looked for love that they weren't ready to back up, right? They weren't ready to pay the price, to sacrifice, to be there for the other person. They looked at one another as a means to an end. They looked at Lucifer as a means to an end. Lucifer looked at Eve as not for her and who she was and how to take care of her, but he looked at her and said, hey, she's going to get me ahead in this plan with God, right? She's going to get me back on an equal footing. I'm going to look better than this little Adam fella here. His desire for love outside of God's vision, his desire for acceptance, his desire to feel value, overrode his desire to live in God's plan and accomplish it and receive the blessing that God had in store for him. Eve as well, right? She's sitting there and she goes, yeah, but he told us not to eat of the fruit. And Lucifer said, well, he just wants to keep all that knowledge from you. That's the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. He wants to lord that over you. But if you eat it, you'll be just like God. And so she had this desire, I want to be more than what I am today. And this is a real easy way to get it. And I don't love Lucifer, but I'm gonna embrace him. And then when she fell, she comes to Adam, she goes, man, I feel dirty, but if I come to him, maybe he'll make me clean again. So she uses him. It's this multiplication of using other people for my own satisfaction. It's this short-term joy that they're seeking, short-term fulfillment. I'm going to have it all. And I'm not going to have to do the work. I'm not going to be responsible. I don't have to care for others. I don't have to think about the consequences because this world is about me. And that's a heart that carries forward, and that's the battle we continue to face in our lives, where we see the good we could do in this world, we see the value we could input, but then there's what about me? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to buy me that new thing? Who's going to do? Well, I got to do it myself. So I'm going to lord this over. I'm going to use other people. And when I feel really bad about it, I'm just going to get other people to join in with me so I don't feel so bad. Everyone else is doing it. But it led to this broken heart, this brokenness that continues through. But God wanted to give us everything. God's whole plan the whole time, He's thinking, Eve, I got this great gift for you. You're going to be the mother of all creation. I'm just going to bless you so abundantly. You have this beautiful garden. You can have everything you want. I'm going to give it all to you, and you're going to get Adam, and he's going to be mature, and he's going to be ready to take care of your needs at that point. I've got it all planned out. And God was so happy and excited, waiting like a parent at Christmas time who had that perfect present and can't wait to see the smile on their kid's face. We went to the birthday party the other night, and Morel and Kyler picked out these really cute gifts, and then Morel got home. It was for Kyler's friend, but it was a little girl, and so Morel went home, and she makes this beautiful little unicorn on a card. And honestly, we were really excited to watch them open it. We were the first ones there, so it was at the bottom of the pile. And so we stayed till the very end of the party because we wanted to see them open it. We were so excited. And the joy that they had when they opened that card up, and oh my goodness, they were so excited. It made Morel feel great, it made Kyler feel great. And we could see just the joy. This little girl got really giddy over this little card, right? That's God's heart. God was like excited and anticipating that moment when we'd open the gift, that we'd be ready to receive it. We'd be ready to take care of it. God was excited. He wanted to give it all. But we were impatient with the timing process, right? But there's a process for you to receive it all. That as we grow in our character, as we take time and put in the effort day in and day out in our relationships, right? I keep loving my wife. When we first got married, we would get masked, and it's like this exciting time, but we didn't really know each other. We had a very short engagement period, And so there was an investment, time after time to build our relationship. Many people, they go, the honeymoon that first year is the greatest year, but I got to tell you, after 12 years, our relationship is much more than it ever was in the beginning. There's an excitement, there's an in-depth knowledge of one another, there's a concern for one another, we know each other's needs, what makes each other feel joy. The time process, right? God put in place so that we can have the fullest gift, the most joy. And they weren't ready to put in that time, that effort, that energy to go through the process of growing, of forming their identity, of growing in themselves and becoming fully mature. And so they were blocked from the tree of life. The tree of life representing the fullness of mankind, the full maturity of a human being, that they've grown in their understanding, they've grown in their ability, they've grown in their accomplishment, they've grown in their responsibility, their care, their concern. And then they can be entrusted with all things. They can be entrusted with this world. And so this was the hope, the desire of all people, to obtain the tree of life. But they were blocked from it. They threw away their chance. And then God said, when you come back to us, when you come back to me, we'll open this door again. But right now, you're not ready for it. So there's a separation. And there were results of this mistake, right? There's the sin nature, or the original sin that kind of carried forward. It was characteristics that people took on, and this way of life that they found, hey, this is how I live my life, so now my kids see it, and they model it, and then it's passed on generation to generation. Adam and Eve both had these characteristics that they inherited from Lucifer, these ideas of how to get the quick gain. So the first characteristic is this ignorance of who God is. Ignorance of God's plan. And so many people walk in darkness, not even knowing that there's a sunshine behind the clouds, right? Not even understanding that God has a vision for our life. God has love for us. God has a purpose for us. And so we just stumble through life hoping that we're going to fall into some kind of fortune, that something's going to work out for us. You see these people go, day after day over to the gas station, buy lottery tickets, hoping that somehow they're just going to stumble into wealth. Right? And this is how humanity lives, right? They're ignorant of God. They're ignorant of the process of creation, the purpose of life, how to make relationships work. And so they keep hoping that they're just going to stumble into someone that's going to fulfill them. A job that's going to fill that gap in their heart. And they're looking for something to fill that void because they're ignorant of God. So the first thing that they passed on was this absence-minded of what God's viewpoint is for our life. How God wants to guide your life. What God's intentions and gifts and hopes and dreams are for our lives. And so we take matters into our own hands. We live life centered on ourselves, centered on what I myself can gain out of this interaction, what I can get this day, instead of what God's vision is for our life. The second is we became irresponsible. When you look at Adam and Eve, they left their roles, they left their responsibilities, and they continued to allow their mistake to hurt other people, that someone else has to shoulder the burden of their mistakes. In life, right, we have people, we all have a role in our family, as a child to our parent, as a husband to our wife. We have a role, and if we can be responsible in that role, everything works in harmony, right? She does her thing, I do my thing. I do my thing for my parents. At work, I keep responsible for my tasks. And everyone else does their tasks. And everything works well. But what happens when someone is late, when someone makes a mistake, when someone just drops their work altogether, and then who has to show up? You know, someone has to stay late now. Spend the rest of the night cleaning up after someone else's mistake. And so we became irresponsible, right? Hoping someone else will fill in the gap, hoping someone else will take up the slack. Then the world kind of fell apart, because when you have a world where nobody's responsible, it's no one owns it, right? Then who's going to clean up the messiest stuff? It's not me. Don't we have a janitor? Do we pay a janitor at this church? You know. So we leave our proper position. God put roles in our lives. God gave us gifts that we can offer to this world. And we neglect that when we are absent-minded of God's vision, of God's purpose, and our role in a relationship with the world, with our families, with our community. Then we let things slide. We become irresponsible. Another one is using others for our happiness. And we saw this, right, throughout Adam and Eve's whole process, is that they kept using the next person. How can this person satisfy my needs? How many relationships have you seen, right, in high school and as you grew up, and maybe other relationships you had, where maybe you looked at someone else as someone that can get you further ahead in life. Maybe you spoke certain things to them, encouraged them in certain ways to do things that would help you out. Not thinking about what it would do to their life, but thinking about how their actions can help you in your life. Many of us have been taken advantage in the same way, used by someone else, manipulated, encouraged to do a certain thing that didn't bring us joy, but someone else somehow gets to make a report, gets to go to the boss and say, hey, look what I did. You go, wait, that was my idea, that was my work, that was my effort. People constantly use other people to fill their lack of value. They get into relationships with, boyfriends and girlfriends and dating around and looking, who's going to fill my void? How can this girl supply the desires that I have, supply that fulfillment for me right now? And when we're all done, when she doesn't inspire me anymore, when she doesn't turn me on anymore, she's going to be discarded, and I'll look for the next one. I'll look for the next spouse. I'll look for the next relationship. This is a pattern of life where we don't truly value and see ourselves interrelated, but we see ourselves isolated, and so therefore we can use other people for my gain. This is that reversal of dominion. God has dominion over each of our lives, but we want to use other people and be God over them, lord it over them, and use them for ourselves, where other people have done this to you. And finally, there's that multiplying of evil. I've made a mistake, I've hurt someone else, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just normalize this negative behavior. If a lot of people are doing it, if the majority is doing it, then it's not bad, right? If society has embraced this culture of taking from others, of using sex to take advantage of others, if society, if everybody agrees on it, then no longer it's bad, right? We've said, hey, this is okay. And so people always look for other people to multiply that evil, to encourage, to walk away from their responsibilities. Hey, if everybody at work stops cleaning the toilets, and I don't feel bad when I don't do it, right? So we multiply evil. We plant seeds of negativity in other people's hearts so that they can be bitter about the same person. And we're saying, hey, that person's causing me all my pain. I'm the victim here. Hey, don't you know how bad that person is? And so everybody agrees about that. And no longer I'm responsible for my mistakes, for my misdeeds, for my inaction. My poverty, my hurt, my sins, they're not my fault, they're that guy's fault. So we multiply that evil. We multiply that into this world. And so sometimes we wonder, why did God not intervene? God is omniscient, God is omnipotent. God knows about the world. He knows how people are. He knows what can be buried in our hearts. I mean, when Cain, after he made his offering, God goes straight to him and he goes, hey, sin is crouching at your door. He knew how our hearts work and how desire can be manipulated. God set up his principle to guide us, but he knew love is a powerful thing. Passion is a powerful thing. Our heart's desires is really powerful. God knew that this could happen, but then God said, you know, I created this world in a very unique way. You know, everything works kind of in systems. Everything grows through a process. But you know, my children, I don't want to have a relationship with them like I do with a tree. I don't want to relate to my children like someone could relate to a dog. And dogs seem very loving, right? But say, come here, boy. You know, he comes. He does what he's asked. He does what he's told. And there's a connection in that relationship. And God recognizes it and values it, but God didn't want that kind of relationship with us. God instilled in us free will, a choice, an ability to make something of our life, to grow up, to be like him, to own this creation, to be partners with God. And so God had to put it out there and say, hey, this is your responsibility. I need you to listen to my commandment right now. I need you to follow these principles. This is a guide for your life. If you do this, this, and this, you'll have that freedom. You'll have that full responsibility over everything. You'll have inherited my heart, my character, to be able to take care of my creation. But I need to know that you are making that choice. That it's not because I made you do it. It's not my forcing you to live in that way, but it's my love with you, my relationship with you inspires you, encourages you to work for more, to do more, to give more. You ever notice, you know, people like a Mother Teresa, someone that loves and loves and loves, and they just keep giving, right? And they're happy about it. And some people are like, I'll give you $5, you know. And then she'd be like, hey, wow, someone just gave me money. You know, like, I feel happy to give this to you. I want to invest in you. Because she was filled with God's love. She was inspired by it. How much joy that brought to God. When Jesus was looking at all the people giving money, right? He saw people making a big deal of how much money they're giving. He saw people begrudgingly writing, all right, what's 10%? And, you know, and figuring it in and making sure they're not giving a cent more. And they put it in the plate. They've done their duty. They've checked their box. And Jesus says, God doesn't enjoy that. God doesn't want that burnt offering. God doesn't want that donation. God likes that one where that little old lady is giving her last cent. And she's happy to do it. She doesn't feel guilty about it. She doesn't feel shame. She doesn't feel coerced. God's looking for that relationship. Just like any one of us, right? I don't want my wife to love me because she should, right? I want her to desire to love me. I don't want my kids to listen to me because I said this is the last time I'm going to say it. I hate doing it. Those are really, that's terrible, right? Doesn't bring you joy. Actually, you go home and you go, oh man, I was a little strong today. You don't enjoy doing that. You want your kids to come up and say, hey, look, I did a good job at school and it made me so happy. You want them to come to you like that. And this was God's desire. This was God's design. This was God's plan. Because he wanted a relationship with you. Those desires in your heart are good and true. They're from God. God wants to see you live passionately for life. Reach for the stars. Build something great. But do it connected to God. Do it with an understanding that everybody here is your brother and sister. And their joy is your joy, and their pain is your pain. So live channeling your desires to make this world a better place. That was God's intent. As we start to live more in alignment with God, as we live in a way where we take responsibility for our station in life, for our place in life, as we learn to take responsibility for our own actions and help other people, not use them for our own good, as we learn to multiply goodness, to go out and just smile at someone, to encourage someone, to tell someone that they're good enough, we can start to reverse this nature that we feel is ingrained in ourselves, but it's not natural. It's never from God. We have to reject that this is natural and say this over here, God's way, that's natural. That's the joy that I look for. I'm going to leave you with this. Deuteronomy 3:4. God, your God, will restore everything you lost. He'll have compassion on you. He'll come back and pick up the pieces from all the places where you were scattered. No matter how far you end up. No matter how far you've gone. No matter how far your kids have gone. No matter how far your relationship with your spouse has gone. No matter how far your own personal value has gone down the gutter. God, your God, will get you out of there. Let's pray. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, well, it feels good to say, God, you are the parent that desires to give us this world. God, you feel so much joy when you see the happiness on our heart. But conversely, God, you see so much pain, you feel so much hurt and anguish when you see us struggling through life. Devoid of value, hurting one another. Now, this has been the history that we have struggled for your joy, struggled for your purpose, struggled for value, God. God, let us open our eyes to you. Let us open our eyes every day, in every situation, not just on Sunday mornings, not just during Hanukkah, but God, in every part of our life, let us open our eyes and see the world the way you see it, Lord. Let us see our brothers and sisters the way you see them, God. God, awaken in ourselves a longing to live with one another, to love one another, God. Open up our hearts to live in a way that brings value to our existence. God, we know that you are working in this world. We see that in the foundations of our movement around this world. We see that in the foundations of many different churches and religions acting in this world. God, we know that you are bringing restoration to this world, Lord, and I just pray that we can help and move quicker. That we can help it move faster. That we don't have to look at the suffering anymore. We don't have to turn on the news anymore with that pain and that suffering in our hearts, God. Lord, lift us up to see our value and the power of our actions, the power of our words. Please bless this congregation, God. These people here are striving to know you, Lord. I pray that you can inspire them, encourage them, live in them this week. Bless them with the knowledge of who you are. God, help us overcome our difficulties, our physical ailments, our financial frustrations, God, so that we can give more to this world. God, please use us as your children, as your ambassadors into this world. God, we want to lift you up today. We want to lift up our brothers and sisters today. Our friends and family that are here with us and those that aren't with us, God. Those that chose not to be here today and those that couldn't make it. Be in their hearts. Encourage them, embrace them. Let them feel the love that we feel right now. God, this world needs you. This world needs us. Let us be your sons and daughters into this world. God, I pray and offer this to you. I pray and offer this with joy and gratitude. God, we love you. And we pray these things in all of our names, in your name. Amen and amen.